Hello there, everybody. Heather with the listening table. People always say, I really love you in red or orange. And to be honest, it was one of those days I got up and I said, I need to get a burst of energy for myself. So I'm showing up with this bright color. And I'm super excited today because I've been trying to do these pretty regularly, this listening table. The whole focus is on how do we listen more effectively at work, to everyone, and that everyone needs to do it better at work. Okay. And today we're going to be talking more about the role of listening in HR leadership and just thinking about us as humans and how we need to listen well. So today I have my guest is Claude Silver, and
Hey!
Claude is the Chief Heart Officer at VaynerMedia. And the first, I don't know if there are many other people have had that title since then, but you were the first to have that title at a company as such, right? Is there anybody else who has tried to follow suit after you, Claude?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
more and more
few.
people.
They reach out and they're like, "I'm a chief heart officer too."
Oh, nice. Oh,
Yeah,
that's so cool. So you like led the way, and you and Gary, I guess, led the
yeah,
way, right? And making
yeah.
sure that this happened. And I think it's important to say that because I don't know about you, when I'm thinking about so whether we're in HR or whatever role we're in, it seems to be that people just think of the work we do and often as like very squishy, very warm and squishy.
Yeah.
And they're like, I want the like tactical takeaway. And I'm like, okay, well, show more care, like care more, like listen, like lean in, and they're like, but that still feels very squishy and not tactical. Well, if you want me to give you a spreadsheet on exactly
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
it's
That's
kind of
crazy.
hilarious. So today we're talking, with you, Claude. We're talking more about this idea of listening, obviously, focused on HR leadership, but in the end, it's just like workplace, and the role that listening has played with your success with team members, your success just in your career, maybe times where you didn't do so well in that. And then, but the thing that you think is like kind of like the thing, like the secret thing, the thing that if everybody did this thing, boy, the planet would be just that much better, right? What do you
Yes.
when we're thinking about that for you, over the years, and just talk about your evolution and what you do at VaynerMedia and just all of that. I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. Well, it's great to see you again. And yeah, and orange red does look smashing on you. I'm glad you brought it. Um, okay, well, gosh, at VaynerMedia, VaynerX, I should say, which is our umbrella, we've got 1,800 people and growing across the globe. And my job description continues to be touch every single person and infuse the agency with empathy. So, how do we do that, right? And that's mine to figure out and mine to scale and bring people along that journey. One of the things I want to say is that just dawned on me while you were talking about HR was um, I don't come from the world of HR. I actually didn't, I never really wanted to be in the world of HR because it had a bad rap, because I had never really known what HR did, all kinds of things, right? Was back of the house. I've always been a front of the house person, all that stuff. But when I really think about it, and this is where we need to really reduce or remove the stigma of HR, every single person in every single company is HR. If we had that right, if we change the name, I don't know what it is, but if we could empower every single person to give a you know what about their fellow teammates, people, employees, the person in the elevator, whatever, it would be a completely different working world. But right now, we still regulate, culture and problems and performance reviews to this department called HR. And it's just it's going to take a huge what do you call it, dump shovel, whatever those trucks are, to get us out of this hole, unless we all start to come together and recognize that we are all responsible for building culture, and we are all responsible for taking care of ourselves and taking care of others.
It's interesting as the older and older I get, the more and the more I've kind of just been out there on these different messages, carrying leadership and listening, and I have come to this. I'm noticing that I went narrow to go broader in my messaging because I would kind of be talking to leaders, people who had be talking to let's just be clear, people who were managers, people who had titles and things like that. And I got to the point where I could see people. removing themselves from the responsibilities I was saying that they had. So like this idea of like in the elevator or wherever you're at. And over time, I'm like, wait a second, nobody is excluded.
Yeah.
So don't be removing yourself from the need to care more, to show compassion, to lean in, to say hello, to give eye contact, like all the things that sound so basic, but we don't do them every day, right?
I
This is
know.
not.
I agree, and I say to people all the time, like, why aren't we treating people at work the same way we treat, Bobby or Jane on our soccer teams, or, our girls that we go out with on Sundays, or whatever. Like, there are microcultures everywhere, and we are all a part of several different microcultures, depending on what we're
Mhm.
into, our family, our church, whatever, religion, yoga, whatever. But it's the same at work. And so why do we not extend that same generosity of spirit as we do on the soccer field, or as we do to our friends at work? What are we so afraid of? Because we keep the armor up, and armored leadership is not a way to lead. That is actually, we can't put those two words together. Armored and leadership, they don't go together. You're armored or you're a leader.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
for you and I,
Yeah.
we believe in leading from the heart. That's where you and I come together and feel like that's the message. And by the way, it's extremely tactical. When people say it's fluffy, it's soft, it's whatever, like, well, we need to show them that it's not. The real way of leading with heart is none of that. It's real. It's honest. It's warm, which isn't soft, by the way, or fluffy. When the sun shines on you, it's warm. It's not soft and fluffy. You know, when we take care of each other, like, gosh, when we are a part of something that's bigger than ourselves, don't we feel incredible? Yeah.
So true. I know. It's the same thing. And I look at it as a compliment when someone says, "Oh, you're just so real," or "You're very warm." And I'm like, "Thank you, thank you." Like you can't even imagine how big of a compliment that is to me.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what I don't want someone to tell me is, "You've got so much presence. You've got so much whatever." And I'm just like, "What does that exactly mean?" Because that means I'm not connected to you.
Yeah.
And my entire goal on the planet is to be connected to you, to another human who's in front of me. So as we think about even this listening, holding space for people, sitting with people in their pain, in their grief, in their happiness, in their all the things. Um, that the idea of being present and central. So I was speaking to some group the other day, and one lady said, "Well, I have like this many people. Like, there's no way I could do all this thing or that thing to all like 500 people." And I'm like, the idea is not about the quantity of the time you're spending with them.
Bingo.
It is the quality of the time. Are you present with them? Are you really truly leaning in with the laptop off, the cell phone off? What are the things you're doing to really keep yourself not distracted? Because there's so many things in this world, for me too, that are, I have 4 kids, and then there's the phone and the cell phone and all these things, right? And it's like, stop it. So kid comes in and I immediately have to intentionally put my lid down,
Yeah.
the laptop lid down, and I have to turn the phone over. I can't even do it because
Yeah.
I am infallible in this. So I'm going to
Oh my gosh.
or fallible. I'm going to be doing this, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, you get, because you're 1,800 employees, so it's like obviously you can't give 30 minutes every single day, because you don't even have that many hours a day. So how do you manage through this idea of, holding space, listening, leaning in, seeking to understand when people are coming at you like a lot, and plus your other initiatives that you have? How do you handle that?
Yeah. The name of the game for me is being present, and then leaning on and relying on other people who have hearts to give, who have hearts to help, who believe in propping others up, who are want to turn other people into heroes, who have great listening skills, letting them take the reins and run with it.
Mhm.
This isn't a, I'm not, it's, to your point, this is quality. It's not quantity. Oh, Claude's a great employee or chief heart officer because she talks to 30 people a day. Oh, I got to 28 today, not 30. Like, no. Sometimes it's just 5 because I'm doing different things. But those 5 conversations are impactful. They have intention in them. We are trying to solve something together, and it doesn't need to be a problem. It literally doesn't need to be a problem. It could be a solving of like how do I make more friends that aren't on my team? It could be anything, or um, so I really, I said it 8 million times. People need people. People need people that listen and then do something.
Mm,
And it's the doing of something that is the part that I think gets forgotten. It's wonderful to listen to people. It's fantastic. But when people are coming to me, they're coming to me for an action after that, to make them feel better, to help them connect, to help them network, to move to another team, to get some training, to feel seen, to feel like they matter, something.
mm,
So I do that, and I have a wonderful team that does that, and there's great people in the company that are culture champions that do that all over the place, and so that's how it's happening. And then, by this time, I've been in this role almost 6.5 years, even though I've kind of been doing it my entire life. I've gotten better at knowing what to prioritize, where the fire is, where the smoke is, and on a peaceful day, what I can do when I've got nothing but time in front of me, meaning like nothing of time, and I can just like talk to people and listen all day.
mm,
So it's a
mm.
juggling act, but it's a really exciting juggling act for me, I should say. I love it. Um, it makes me feel like I'm doing something and co-creating and cultivating a culture where people want to be, where I want to be. If I didn't want to be at this culture, then I wouldn't be here.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
mm.
I've worked
I do.
long enough and you've worked long enough to know, we can now pick the lane we want to operate in, and we don't have to operate in those other archaic top down militant cultures that are full of fear. We don't have to. And so the hope is that more and more and more and more people realize it doesn't have to be like that. They don't need to lead like that. They don't need to follow like that. There are places, there are people like yourself, companies like Vayner that embrace people for the difference that they are. Accept
Mm.
people for the difference that they are. Anyway, you got me on a roll
And
today.
I'm just like, preach a sister. I'm just literally just, I'm just sitting here.
You got me on a roll.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have a couple questions. So, one, it's not actually, I don't see it. I see it in the comments where we ask, what's the one question we have for you? So, one is for you, Claude, from Ranjith Abraham. Could you please share a learning from your leadership journey that has had a profound impact on you?
Oh, wow. Yes, let's pick one of the 800,000 times I've fallen down and stood back up. I would say there's a couple I will say here. I believe I have really learned what patience is all about. And it's a metaphor. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But like, what is it that we are trying to, what is the objective of whatever it is in front of me? It's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's something that we can achieve in the next 9 months, 12 months, 24 months. I've learned to look at time this way rather than this way, wide, expansive,
Mhm.
let's set things up properly rather than let's get to it immediately. And I used to be a real immediate, like, solve that. I got that. Solve that. I was like A to Z. It was never the entire alphabet, and I skipped so many steps along the way and probably, skipped conversations that needed to happen and all that. So that is one that's really huge for me. And I would also say something I already mentioned is prioritization. First and foremost, understanding my energy and when I'm at my best. So I'm really, probably really, really impactful up until about 3. And then I really do. I wane. I do. It doesn't matter if you give me another Diet Coke or, a chocolate covered pretzel, or I take a walk. I'm sapped from about 6 a.m. to 3 is when I can do my work. So managing my own energy, realizing when I can really like do my stuff, but then also prioritizing what is it that I can get to that I know needs my attention today. And I know I just told you I only really can function up until 3, and
Mhm.
from 3 on, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. So looking at my energy, figuring out what is the most important thing I need to do in this hour, in this meeting, in this moment, and really doing my best to take care of that. And that's, that's I'm a work in progress. Thank you for the
You and
question.
me too, sis.
That's it.
Full
Yeah.
on, and everybody else in the chat here. Okay, here's one more
Yep.
question here. There's one more. Okay, Sonia, hello there, lady, and hi, Jennifer, and uh, Dina, and Brian, and whoever else is out there in the world. Hello. Okay, so
Hello.
Sonia, so what is a key to affirming the semantic noise is not silencing the message? So, like, I guess I'm assuming what you're saying there, and if we get this wrong, start to put another comment to clarify in the comments too, Sonia. So what is key to affirming the semantic noise? So people just like, I don't even know, being technical about what they're saying and not silencing message. So you say a message and then like I'm assuming this from the HR perspective, you say something and then people get clouded by the words. Is that what you're saying, Sonia? Do me a favor, because just in case I'm not completely understanding it, just put in the comments being a little bit more clear on that for me. Unless, of course, Claude, you completely get it.
I want to.
Yep.
I think we're close, but I don't want to misspeak.
Yeah, we don't wanna make assumptions. So Sonia, just add a little bit more clarification on that, about what you mean. And then I see there's several here comments here. So we got, Jennifer, Dr. Todd, it looks like, some radical thinking. Shouldn't organizations extend the dignity, warmth, and validation to potential employees going through the HR process? New onboarding employees, that would be a true expression of people-centric organization.
Woo! Let's give you massive props, doctor.
Yeah.
We do a 3-day orientation for each and every person. You could be a C-suite, you could be a copywriter, you could be a media assistant, you could be an intern. You are all going to be in the same 3-day orientation. It's every Monday. It starts at 12:30 if you want to join. And right now it's on Zoom, obviously. It's great that it's on Zoom because now I can get almost all of our offices in, with the exception of Southeast Asia. Singapore, I can't get them in, but I can get, everyone from LA to London to Mexico and New York in. And so what I love about our orientation, love, a couple of things, very passionate about it. I believe it breaks down hierarchy immediately. You are all together. You could be with the chief innovation officer is right next to you on the square with the, creative director, with the media associate and the resident who's never had a job in their life. Breaks down things. They are with, they're going through a lot of icebreakers, but they're with subject matter departmental experts for an hour going through how we think, why are we disruptive when it comes to this? Why do we put people first? 3 entire days. And then they go to their account team, whatever team they're on or their department, and then they get onboarded, which is a whole nother thing. So if you want to put people first, you have to practice what you preach. Their first session is with me at 12:30 East Coast on Mondays because they're going through why we think the way we do. So the origins of Vayner, how we got started, blah, 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 the ethos, where we are located, this role in particular, because it's very different how I shuck and jive with Gary and others. And then really why kindness and compassion are table stakes here, So anyway, I can go on and on and on about orientation, but I'm massive about that. And then, and they're meeting everyone. They're meeting so many people. And so the cool thing is like, you'll look back and you'll say, you'll say, oh yeah, I was in the January 1st class of 2021. You were there too. Oh gosh, I haven't seen you, Bobby, since that, because he's in LA or whatever. So it's a great way to start the engine of the connective tissue, which is what I believe is one of our winning formulas here, and really helping people understand, like, we put people first. We call our culture internally the honey empire. I walk them through that. I walk them through what kind candor is, what feedback is, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, what empathy sounds like, what it doesn't sound like. So anyway, thank you for the question.
That's very good. Yes. Oh, I love. Okay, here's another one from Dina. And just for anybody who's joining, I'm on now with the Chief Heart Officer of VaynerMedia, VaynerX.
Yep.
VaynerX, Claude Silver, one of my faves. I'm telling you, we were operating in parallel universes. I am heart based leadership with heart, caring leadership.
Yep.
And every time I hear her stuff, I'm like, yep. And she's like, amen over here. And I'm like, amen.
Yeah, man.
Like, let's just come over here. Let's talk about listening. Let's talk about the impact of leaning in. Let's talk about meeting people where we're at. I mean, let's just talk about it all. It's all on the
Let's
table
do
now.
it.
Okay,
Let's
here.
do it.
So Dina, I think it's Dina or Dinah. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. What sort of systems do you have in place to support your role? Do you profile employees and store valuable conversation data?
Hmm.
So I'm assuming that means like because you do have so many employees, how do you, I guess remember and kind of
Yeah.
categorize so that you can go back to them and that relationship building.
Yep.
And if that's not exactly what you mean, then again, go ahead and clarify that for us in the comments. Okay. But
If it
Claude, let's
is
answer
what you
that. What
mean.
with this poor sort of the systems you said is you manage that energy, but after 3, you're not gonna be as present, so maybe you don't, like, put meetings and things there for you, just, like, as it relates to leaning in. But
I
then
think,
anything else related to those conversations you have,
yeah.
the conversations you have, like, what does that look like? Do you have a
Yeah.
place where you store some of that, or what does it look like?
Yes. So we have a people management system. It's called HiBob. It's technology that we onboarded almost 2 years ago. I searched high and low for 18 months for an HRIS, if you will. HiBob is much more than that. The thing that I love about HiBob is that's where everything is done. That's where your review is done. That's where your peer review is done. That's where you can ask for a review to be done. That's where I could put in notes about my conversation with Brian. That's where anything and everything can happen. That's where we put surveys out. It also functions as an intranet. So
Nice.
HiBob is the system that we use. It is incredible for me. It's incredible for my team because they're the ones actually doing a lot of the work, the reviews, and all of that. And we have everyone using it now. So we're going through reviews right now. August is the one time of year that we do annual reviews, but HiBob has allowed us to become a much more frequent feedback culture where I can ask, I'm an employee, and I can ask Heather to give me some peer review because I just want to know how I'm doing. So
Hmm.
that's a huge system that I lean on every single day. Before we used that, we were in Google Docs, which uh, you know, which was fine, and it got us as far as it got us.
Exactly.
So we use that. We use Greenhouse as our applicant tracking system, which is extremely helpful. If anyone has used that, it's a great way to store data on candidates. I also get sent survey reports. I'm sorry, data every Sunday night on the candidate's experience because they get sent a survey they can fill out. Like, were we attentive? Was there a pen in the room? Did people know what the job? That kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And that's really important because I changed the name from HR to People and Experience. We are the People and Experience department. People and Experience. We are looking after and partnering with you, the people, on your entire experience. And your entire experience starts the minute you submit your resume. That's it. And so we're with you. We're a shepherd with you, a Sherpa with you the entire time. So I'm hoping that was where you were taking the question, Dina. If not, let me know and I'll redirect.
I love it because, I've always talked about what anybody who's like a design thinker, we always think about experience as a journey and where it starts when we look at employee or customer experience, the way it's not always linear, but it is a journey and you have to figure out what that is for your team members and for your customers and then figure out where your gaps are and where you're not shining as much. And I like that the way you have that because if you're doing it candidate, you're doing it even like after onboarding and you're able to continue to check in and look at it in aggregate and look at it individually, you look at an aggregate with a bigger organization like yours, it does help you make more intelligent changes. So that's why I believe so much in because so much of what work I do is intuitive. I believe in human nature and I know a lot about it. My gut tells me things, but I also know most people don't really want to hear about that. They want to hear about the data. So I use so much data at our
Yeah.
firm at Employee Fanatics because it's important to be able, if you have a big organization, how do you can't solve for every tiny little thing, but you can say, well, it appears that over the last year, our candidate experience has really been falling down on this area. You can solve for that area instead of trying to solve for everything and your head's spinning and you can't ever get to everything, right?
Oh, yeah. And the way we solve for that is then we do interview training. Then we do unconscious
Mhm.
bias training within interview. Then based on that data, we're able to plug something in that I hope is a really effective solve for that. Dina, hit me up offline, and I'm happy to introduce you to the Hi Bob folks. They're wonderful. Anyway, I'm glad that was what you were looking for.
Oh, that's awesome. And I can't see, it says LinkedIn user. So, okay. Well, Brian Kelly says, yep, patience and prioritization is so valuable. So, you know,
Thanks,
Brian, and
Brian. Thanks,
he's
Brian.
saying that. Yep. And then this LinkedIn user, I don't know who it is, but it says knowing and managing your energy. Yep. That you talked about that earlier is so
Mhm.
important. And then of course, I don't know if it's the same person, but they say, wow, not when they step into the organization, but for the first time they submit their resume.
Yeah.
She loved that. The fact that, because I think that's the key. I think that many organizations drop the ball on thinking about the fact that the journey it actually starts before they submitted a resume. It's in your employer brand. So
Yes, exactly.
it's like
You're
the
right.
people who leave your organization, what do they say about you?
You're
It's the
right.
customers they have, what do they say? So, right. So it's like out there, how are you managing that? And
Yeah.
how are you kind of curating what that even looks like before they go to apply? So that, and it's almost, if you look at it kind of like a sales funnel in a way,
Yeah.
right? Where you're bringing them in, and what do you do to bring people in that are heart centered, have all the aligned values there? It's that messaging you put out there. Just
Yeah,
a
yeah.
messaging
No,
you
you're
put out,
totally
you and Gary and everybody else that's out there giving
yeah.
messaging, right?
It's absolutely right. You know, when people ask me, I get this question sometimes when I go and speak or give keynotes. So like, are you speaking as Claude? Are you speaking as Vayner? I'm like, it's really the same, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I mean, I work in this place. These are Claude's beliefs. They happen to work within like there's no, this isn't about when I go to Vayner, I'm a completely different person and I don't wear this shirt. Like what you see is what you get. And that's
What a
one of the
blessing.
things I'm really proud of. And to that point, your employer brand is something we have to work on all the time. And it's, as I said in the beginning of the conversation, I think everyone I don't say all the time, but everyone needs to have people and experience team on their signature. Copywriter, people and experience, you know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
want everyone to feel like they're invested with everyone and in everyone's growth, just as they are with their own. And the same thing for who I am out in the world. When I walk over there to get coffee later, like I happen to work at Vayner. So I I got, we want to, what we put out on our social media, like hopefully it's going to be positive when someone says, "Oh, Bobby works at Vayner." Cool. It wasn't full of, you know, lyrics and whatnot that you know what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say? Like, well, we don't, I'm not, certainly not Big Brother, but it's um it's an interesting one to tightrope to watch to walk sometimes.
Oh, it's so interesting. So as I'm sitting here, so I'm right, I'm in the middle of just trying to finalize this book on active listening, how people at work feel heard, valued, and understood. And as I am doing it, oh gosh, I'm recognizing so many holes in my own listening process.
Yeah.
So I'm writing it, and as I'm writing it, I'm researching it, and I'm putting in my own stories, and at the same time, I'm going, boy, I have a block there. Boy, I need to be better there. So as I'm writing this for others, I'm seeing my holes. And so right now, as I'm sitting here listening to you, where I would value just purely listening to you. Like I said, with just nothing else going on, there's comments going on, and
Yeah.
so the comments are great. But what it does is it takes me away. And
Yeah.
as we think about listening and
Yeah.
presence and minimizing multitasking and all the things that we already do to just fall down in this listening space, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing it. I mean, I have to, like, I'm in this place where otherwise I'm ignoring people, which is another bad thing. I don't want someone
Yeah.
to, because I think it's interesting when I say this, and I know you feel this way too. It's like this idea of inclusion. So for inclusion for me is including everybody's
Yeah.
voices. And so I want to include their voices, but sometimes when you include all the voices, then you can't really hear the individual needs, right? What do you feel
Yeah.
about that? You
Yeah.
experience that probably a lot, huh?
Well, what I feel about is we're doing our best and we're perfectly imperfect. And you've set the intention that you want to be a great active listener. And so that's what you do probably 9.5 out of 10 times. So what I do say is I have to give myself as much grace as I give the other person. Um, I'm doing, I really am doing the best I can. And then when I'm not, I need to be respectful of that and cancel my next meeting because I really need to get outside or whatever it is. And I've gotten much better at that, I would say, in the last year and a half since we've been at home. I mean, we've been at home longer than that, but otherwise I'm not I want to bring it every single time, every single conversation, but I am a mere mortal. And uh, I don't
Really?
I don't want to fake that. I don't want to fake the fact that, yeah, I want to be interested in every conversation. So I have to really make sure I can show up like that. And there are moments and times that I don't, because I am me. Today I took a walk with my 3.5-year-old and my 1-year-old, and I don't know, it was 8 a.m. And so emails were starting to come in, and I took my phone. I was pushing them in the stroller, and I took my phone, and I voice noted someone. And my 3.5-year-old said, "Mommy, can you not do that?" And I said, "You mean not speak on the phone?" She said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Whoa, wow, that was a really, thank you for waking me up. This is what's important. That email can wait. It's 8. The fact that she was like, "Can you not do that?" I was like, "Oh my gosh." Yes.
My kids, I'm telling you, oh my goodness, they smack me in my face all the time on that.
Yeah.
Because and I'm an entrepreneur of a little small business, and so I feel like if turning it off is harder for me. It always has been. It
Yeah.
always, even if I'm working for someone else, by the way, it's always been that way.
Yeah.
I have that way about me where I'm kind of OCD and I have to get it done. I feel like it needs to get done now or get done. And so then I have one kid in particular who he'll just be like, "Why do you have to, like, do that?" I'm like, "Well, honey, you have to remember, I'm actually with you, like, right now, it's actually whatever, 2 o'clock, and I'm taking you to a soccer game, so I'm at this, in the car, but it's during my work hours.
Right.
So it's hard for me not to do. I know you like, I wanna be present, but at the same time, I'm struggling, and I know everybody goes, "This is not
Yeah.
just a Heather thing. This
No.
is not unique in any way," and you're right. I'm always definitely more apt, though, to give grace to others, and I
Yes.
tell people, "Give grace to yourself," we have to give grace to ourselves. And I still struggle. That's probably the area I
Yeah.
struggle the most. Just being so hard on myself for not doing the thing that I say I'm value. It's the congruency thing. It's
Yeah.
like I say I value listening to you. And so when I don't do that, then I'm being incongruent. But I also say I value grace and like forgiveness.
You know what? Being a human is messy. I mean, that's what I can say. It's perfectly messy. Like, none of us are gonna get it right 100% of the time. Just not. I mean, the first question that we had that wasn't on here was about like some of the leadership principles that I've learned, and I continue to learn because obviously I have gaps in my learning and need to continue to learn how to show up in a better way, in a more intentional way, a fill in the blank way. It doesn't matter. So, I gave the example of two of the things, prioritization and patience, but there's so many things I need to continue to work on and
How
give
do you
myself and allow myself that. There's, when sometimes people are like, "I want to be just like you." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. You want to be just like you. You want to be just like you, not like me, please." Please, there's enough me for the next 100 years or however long I'll be alive, hopefully 50, but anyway.
That's so, so true. So I'm curious to know how do you ensure alignment, so at work with team members, when you see them, you know, not being inclusive in their conversations, in their decision making, when they're not listening to other people, when their values aren't aligning with your kind of heart focused values, compassion focused values at work. How do you get that back on track?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to get on track once we are aware of it, because that kind of insecurity, politicking, stuff like that really doesn't work well. Um, you know, Trying to get as close to the sun as you possibly can and leaving other people in the shadows and the dust, like, that just doesn't work. So it's a matter, the point of me talking and listening and reaching out to so many people is so I can take data in. I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for things that are going great, and I'm looking to hear about that one creative director that completely disses those 3 copywriters every time. What's going on with that creative director? Right? Like, what's going on?
Mhm.
What's going on with that creative director's life before they even enter the workplace during the day? Do they have issues at home? Whatnot, whatnot. And, digging into that, because, I'm, to men, that's why I'm talking to people, we want this to be the best decision people have ever made for their life. I want this to be the best career that people have chosen, no matter where they are in their career timeline. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're practicing what we preach. And so there is no such thing as, high performance and bully. You can't have those sentences together, those words together. Where is the cynicism? Where is the insecurity? Where is that person that keeps on saying no rather than yes and? Why does that
Mhm.
person keep on saying no when we work for a guy that says yes and all the time? Who are we to say no? You
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
these are the
Yes.
this is what
Mhm.
I'm listening for, and then trying to find solutions or remedies, or uh, to be honest, really empowering that person to go have the conversation that they need to have.
I like when you said, "Oh, and I'm listening, I'm seeking, I'm, like, there for data," and that's exactly how I see listening too. I mean, people think data has to be something from a spreadsheet, a number, some
Yeah,
kind of chart, which I don't really use many of those at all in anything I do,
yeah,
and so it
yeah.
is all qualitative. It is like the data take the opportunity when you're sitting across from someone to know that you're they say something to you, and they're giving you a set of data, and you decide what action you're gonna take on that data.
That's right.
Are you going does it need action? Have you asked them whether they need you to take action? Sometimes they only wanna be heard, sometimes they don't want you to do a thing. That is the action. The action is
That is
just
right.
sitting quietly and
Mm,
listening,
My
engaging.
my last conversation right before we started at noon here was with a guy I had never met. He put the time on my calendar. And, we did the, yeah, da, 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 what do you do? And da, 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 where do you live? And da, 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 what kind of music do you like? Whatever, just
Yeah.
whatever. And then finally I said, because we're kind of like petering out a bit, and I was like, hey, is there anything I can help you with? And he said, no, not really. I just wanted to introduce myself. And I was like, amazing. I can't wait to see you in the office. Cool. And that was it.
Nice.
Sometimes I have to say, is there anything I can help with? Because it might be difficult for some people to start that, like, I don't want to complain or blah, blah, blah. It's like, just tell me. Let's just talk.
Yeah. That's great. I love it. Just being there with you. Okay, so, Dina, you're being just really active. I love it. Thank you. Anybody else out there in the universe have questions or comments? I have seen a few of you, so thank you. Okay, so how would you define your organizational structure? Is it fair to say there is a marriage here of top down and bottom up models, or could you elaborate more, please, on your unique structure, how it looks and operates?
Yeah, it's we call it the diamond, believe it or not. Like, we have Gary, he is at the top. And then he has his leaders, myself, our COO, a couple other people. And then we have, so the diamond is
Mhm.
kind of like that, right? I guess. We have a normal leadership, senior leadership, and then at the bottom we have created, during COVID, we created two extremely important roles. They are all entry level roles. One is called a creator, one is called a post creative strategist. They are all entry level roles, and they have enormous amounts of swing power at the company. So, yes, it is a marriage of top down, bottom up, but I don't even want to say the top down. I like to think of it as less hierarchical than that. And I know that I probably live in fantasy land sometimes when I say that. But I like to say the truth, which is we give a lot of recognition, but this bottom of the triangle has a lot of voice, a lot
Mm.
of voice, which has been really interesting to see how that is adapted with people who have been in the working world for 20 plus years, who are like, who are you? What do you mean that creative's not going to fly? Like, who are you? But these people down here are TikTok experts. They are digital natives. They know what audiences are responding to on social. Whereas a lot of us up here are Gen X's that, are learning.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I feel like the more we can have everybody, the seat that they are in the organization, feel just hyper empowered to make the business successful and be feeling super safe to speak up when when something doesn't look like it's going to keep you on track based upon whatever the vision or the goals that you maybe communicated early on. That's just my role, but just how I lead. I can't. It drives me nuts to be someone who shuts people down because it is counter to because sometimes that voice, often actually that voice is the voice we needed to hear. I found
That's
like
right.
like quiet people, and they
Yeah,
don't say anything. And I'm like, Andrew, like, come here. Like, I want to hear what you're saying. And when they say, like, they could say 4 words, and you're just
right,
like,
right.
wow, like,
Yeah,
how did
very
we not see
impactful.
that, right? So just
Yeah.
creating that safety for people. What do you
Yeah,
is there anything that you do in particular to really I know, just creating more safety, particularly in meetings where there is that kind of there is a hierarchy maybe inside the meeting. How do you create that safety for people?
yeah, well, I would say primarily we've had to learn how to do it on Zoom. We've had to learn how to make sure that the introverts have a moment in time to think, process, talk. We need to be very aware of who might be oversharing or taking the oxygen out of the room. We need to be very aware of, who is creating fear, where is the fear, why is the fear there, and really do our best to, smother that fear with blankets and put more safety and empowerment into the organization. So it's something that we do a lot of training on now. I would say over the last 3 years, we've brought in some incredible senior leaders who I can count on,
Hmm.
which is amazing. That I know when I say, "Hey, you got to look into that copyright, that creative director that was silencing these three people's voice. Like, what's going on there?" Like, I don't have to do that job anymore, which is really nice. I can be effective in helping and figuring in, talking to the creative director eventually, but I don't need to be I don't want to be the solver for everything. That's not fun.
For those who are listening right now, if you just, love, adore Claude, and like to hear even more of some of our conversations. She was on my podcast a long while
Long
ago.
time ago. Yeah.
Episode 55, I wanna say,
Wow.
of the Leadership with Heart podcast,
Nice.
Leadership with Heart, and, I'm not sure, Ashley, if you're out there, you can put that in the comments for people to go click on, but, um, it was a great one then, and I remember this idea because you use this term, I feel like, more than most, and this the idea of holding space. So, you hear other people say it, but it's one of your things that and so just to talk about that, talk about what holding space is in your mind and maybe how others that are on here now and will watch this later can do a better job of holding space for people.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's a term that comes out of like psychology and therapist training, or at least that's where I learned it. The idea of holding space is to be an active listener, to not have judgment, to create either visualize or create a neutralized space right here where we can talk about whatever it is that it has no judgment attached to it. I don't have to have the answers. Not a know-it-all in this. I'm a partner, and it's not about me. That is the one thing. If there's one thing I can say about these conversations when you're holding spaces, it ain't about you. This is about this. What are we going to do with this divine space we have here, which, as you see, is I'm making the space up, but that's what we do. And I can do it on Zoom and I do it in a room. And it is really leaning in with attention. You lean in with your body language. You let that person know that this is the only conversation that matters in my entire existence right now, right here, right now. But the no judgment is really important. I'm not commenting, oh, does Claude Silver think about that person? Like it's not about Claude Silver's thought. It's about this person and what they're saying and maybe what they're struggling with. The person that came on screen, and I think it was September of last year, had set up time with me. I came on just like I did today with that other person, and he was 23. He said, "I'm 23." His name was Paul, and oh, hey, how are you, Paul? Nice to meet you. um, and I said, is there anything you want to talk about? I didn't know this person from Adam. I hadn't seen this person in orientation because they started when I was on vacation. Doesn't matter. And he said, I struggle with depression. And there's 8 million things I could have said in that holding space. And the one I chose was, "What do you do when you feel a bout of depression coming on?" And he said, "I write poetry." So I said, "I'd love to hear some of your poetry." And he said, and it's very tender to me, "Only if you'll share with me one of your favorite poems." This is all in this fictitious space. I shared with him a poem, one of my favorites that I also knew I thought he might like. He read 3 of his poems to me. We were crying. 20 minutes later, he said to me, "Now I see why Chris told me to come talk to you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The space is neutralized." I got up and probably wiped my tears and did some jumping jacks and got back into my role.
What
But
I
that's
love
what
about
holding
that.
space is. Like, what I could have said to him, "Do you need a therapist? Do you have a therapist? How can I help? Do you need to take time?" I could have gone to him with so many like blah, blah HR stuff. And instead I was like, "Okay, human, what do you do? I can tell you what I do when I'm sad. Human."
I
So,
love that the whole, I believe in visualization. People probably look at me like I'm crazy, like, "Is this what is up with this I'll say that a lot. I'll be like, "In my head, I do this thing, and you can do this thing," and I was just put it in your head, like, "Right now, let's do it," you know? And they're like, "What?"
yeah,
It is a gift. I think it is a gift to learn to visualize the things that we intend, right?
yeah, of course.
Whether it's goals or whether it's this idea of, like, if the thing I value is at the top of my list as a human, is to be there for another human truly in the moment, then it's worth it to me to figure out this visualization thing of how do I enter and I create the space visually. I enter into the space. There's nothing in this space. It's just us in the safe little cocoon that we're in as we talk about the things that we're talking about. And if you didn't ask that question, and if he wasn't even just if he wasn't even just that little bit of like vulnerable to say it, number one, and then actually kind of brave to kind of say, but tell me more about you, because who's going to do that with someone at your level,
Couldn't
right? And they don't
believe
know
it.
you.
It was so wonderful. It was so, I was like, "What? Okay, cool." And I read him Derek Walcott's Love After Love. And and then he read me these 3, beautiful, painful poems. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you greet people where they are without expectation and not putting my own judgment of whatever into that soup. Because that's the last thing that guy needed.
Mm,
He just needed to be seen and held and known and knew, in his bones that he mattered to me in those moments. And what he said to me at the end when he said, "Now I know why Chris told me to come talk to you." Chris was saying to him, "Go talk to Claude. You matter." That's what he was saying. "Don't disappear on us."
mm. Oh, wow, that's really powerful. I had a gentleman reach out to me on something. He wanted me to do a video on this topic, and he was just so sweet. And he said, I had an employee who said they wanted to quit, and this team member is like super valuable, and they would leave a big hole if they left. And so, what questions should I ask them when I'm in front of them? And you try to give some of those tips, but the truth is, when they're in front of you, and depending on what they give you in that space, you don't really know exactly. I mean, you can kind of think you might ask this or that, but in the end, um, gosh, you're supposed to be there for them. And I don't know. I always struggle with this idea of I wanna go to them for them to stay, so this give versus get mentality with listening. So I wanna get them to stay. So it is like it's centered on, like, I want them with me. I don't want them to leave, it's gonna hurt the team, and they are valuable, so I may have messed up by not sharing that they were valuable in
Mm,
advance of this. Okay, so the grace idea. Okay, so if I forgive myself of that and I say, "In this moment, how can I be my best self?" So that I can make sure that maybe they will change their mind, but and then but then this idea also of just giving them that time to if I ask them, like, why and what's the reasons, and, is there anything we could have done, and those kinds of things, like, not doing it again with the eye of trying to fix it in that moment, but just hearing them out. This is all this is a complicated mix, right? It really is. And what do you do, Claude, when someone is just kind of like, ah, like you're in that space, you're trying to hold space, but they're just so kind of
yeah.
guarded like that. What do you do?
Well, I have a go-to that I use all the time, which is when that happens, which is uh, rosebud thorn. So we have these 15 minutes. I'm not going to necessarily let them off at minute 3 when they're resistant. So let's play Rosebud Thorn. Rose, tell me something that's going great. Bud, what are you looking forward to? Thorn, something that's not going great. Obviously, I'm listening for that one. And they say a lot of times, you mean at work? And I'm like, no, just in life. Just tell me what's going great. And, then they might say, well, I got engaged. And I'll be like, oh my God, that's great. Or we got a new puppy. Oh my God, that's great. Or I just got a promotion. Oh my God, that's great. So I do things to enter into a conversation that, again, I think it's really where meeting them where they are. Like, what's going great in your life?
Mhm.
Oh, I read a great book. Cool.
Yeah,
Doesn't
whole
have
person
to be,
leadership, right?
yeah,
All person, the whole
yeah,
thing.
yeah. It doesn't have to be magnificent. I climbed, Kilimanjaro in 2 days. Like, what did you do? I took a walk to the beach. Awesome. What are you looking forward to? Taking the next walk to the beach. Cool.
I love that rosebud thorn. That's a really good kind of practical way to be thinking about it. And I have just one last question before we start to wrap up because I was on my mind and then it went out and it went back in. That's what happens when you start to get older. It is this. What do you do when you're holding space with someone and they share something with you that is not something you necessarily agree with? Like I lifestyle, like whatever it is, like there's all these things I can just think about when we think about acceptance, we think about inclusion, we think of belonging. And I know that people struggle sometimes because whatever might be divulged when I say, well, you have to kind of, you want them to feel like they belong, you want to include them, even if they show up different than you, even if they live a different life. Even how do you do that when you're again creating that space and you're walking in there and someone, whatever shares stuff there and you're inside, you're like, whatever that is, right? You might just
Yeah.
how do you do it? I guess it is that like, how do you create the judgment-free zone if you're not really aligned with where whatever they're talking about in that journey?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of the times. And there have been times when that's happened. Like, there have been employees that have said, I don't believe in having emotions in the office, or I don't want to talk about, I don't know why we talk about love in the office and stuff like that. So I've had that before. And I respect what they have to say. If I'm having a conflict with what they're saying, that's my conflict, not theirs. You know, it's not for, I'm not going to challenge them. If I challenge them on anything, it's going to be their performance. It's not going to be their person. And we have people that vote differently than me in the company, that vote differently than most of us in the company. And that's just the way they vote. And I still talk to them, but I mean, like, I guess if I'm having a challenge, it's just my challenge, unless they've hurt me as a person,
Mhm,
which it's not that it would take a lot. It would be very out of the norm.
mhm. Oh
So,
gosh.
but I think, just to double down on that, like, literally, it's mine to resolve, and I will most likely talk to someone about it. And I don't mean like a tattletale. I'll talk to a friend, or I'll, bring it up with Gary, or I'll be like, gosh, this person said something very strange to me, and I'm trying to really figure out where that comes from.
Mm. So as what I'm gonna do, I see one last question, but I'm thinking I'll do is use that as kind of a good segue for maybe just your some final parting words on um, feedback, listening, impact, getting better at work with humans, listening, being present. So here's what Dina asked, and let's just see if you can kind of swirl that into what I just said. Okay, so could you perhaps share some conversation prompts used to interview a candidate to gauge for culture? So if you could kind of answer that in the context of that, and then the final say of like this is what I think is the most important as it relates to it doesn't matter interviewing with any human that's at
Yeah.
work relates to culture.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing just to say out loud is, we hire for skill set fit and culture addition. And so that's a change that I made in the water stream 6 years ago. No longer hiring for culture fit. I don't even know what culture fit is. Like, if I'm really going to be honest with you, I don't know. Like, are you and I a culture fit? I have no idea. But we get along. We like each other. So that's the first thing I'll say. But I will wrap that up into the idea of, inclusivity. And when I say skill set, fit, and culture addition, I'm looking for people that are going to bring us different ways of thinking. They potentially have seen or unseen abilities, which will also bring us different ways of looking at solutions and problems and challenges, values in a similar postal code, but not exactly like how I say. This is what empathy means to me. I don't want anyone to parrot that back to me. Just act, you know. So the questions that we do ask, though, are usually open-ended questions on, tell me a time in which you failed. What was that like? Tell me a time in which you were successful or your team was successful. You're looking for I statements. Is it all about me, 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 or is it about we, 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 we? You know, when I failed, is it about blaming someone else, or am I taking accountability for it? Because I want to hire people that can take accountability for their own person. I'm looking for ways in which people have can manage their emotions, and I don't mean silence their emotions, but can be responsible for their emotions. So I'm asking a lot of questions and listening. I'm watching people's body language and listening for ways in which I think that we can partner and come into this beautiful minestrone soup, because we need a lot of ingredients in here. We need a lot of people that bring different things to us. Difference, not other. There's too much othering in the world. Bring us the way you think. Bring us the way you feel. Bring us the way you paint. Bring us the thought that you juggle on the weekends. And let's find a home for you.
Mm.
Boom.
Boom. Boom.
Boom.
So lovely. It's just, yeah, that great way to put the little cherry on top of the conversation. As always, Mrs.
Thank you.
Silver, great to hear from you and to have you as the center of this
Thank you
conversation.
very
There's
much.
no better person that can, that can just be talking full of heart, such a
Thank
heart-based
you very
leader,
much.
such a caring leader. I know we're all works in progress, but you're top of that mark. So
Thank
thank
you,
you so
Heather.
much
I
for being with
appreciate
us.
you.
And for everybody out there, I know you might have other questions. Just continue to put in there. I'm sure at some point Claude will find time to
Yep.
to like answer any questions you might put in the comments even after the video goes off. But thank you for joining everybody that's out there. Thanks again, Claude, and just continue to be leaning in, listening, holding space for people, and put yourself out of it. Take yourself out of it and just be present. Thanks, everybody.
Rock on. Thank you.